Hi everyone, this will be my last video of the semester for English 203. I'm narrating this pretty quickly, so I apologize if there's some glitches. I wanted to make sure to get this into your hands as quickly as possible so you can get to the research posters which are going to take us to the end of the semester. I'm interested in you guys doing research posters for a couple reasons. Obviously, they're a great way to present the results of research. But more importantly, a research poster and participating in a research session, such as Purdue's Undergraduate Research Day, is a great way that you can imagine yourself as a researcher and explore things that you're really interested in concert and in collaboration with other people. There's nothing like talking with other researchers to really try to understand the type of work that you're doing and find ways to push it forward. So let's talk about what you need if you're going to be doing one of these poster sessions. We're not doing one in our class, but let's pretend for a little bit that we are. There's three essentials for any poster session: the poster, the pitches, and the handout. The poster is the most important part of the presentation. It's the text and the graphics that share the parts of your work that you think are the most interesting. The pitches are what you prepare to talk with session attendees. This isn't reading a bunch of scripts. It's just being ready to talk about your project with people who are ready to ask questions. The handout is the literal takeaway: contact information, key findings or issues that you're going to explore going forward, and more about you and the larger project on one piece of paper that attendees can take with them. So think about how these three elements can work together. Obviously, a poster is better at visuals. A handout might be better for references. What can a pitch do? Each of them do different things well, and having a good poster session is about figuring out what each of them can do best. Now, for our purposes this semester, you don't have to do a handout. Make one if you want to practice, but if you've got enough going on, then all you need to do is create the poster and the pitches. So let's talk about the genre features of a poster. What do posters do, and what do they typically include, and what do good examples of posters look like? Well, here's a bad example. When somebody took their research paper, copy, pasted, and stuck it in PowerPoint. This just isn't going to work. Could you imagine reading this? This is a failure to just deal with your poster, edit it down, and let go of the paper that you wrote for your project. Here's a better way to do it. This is a poster from a graduate class that a student shared with me. You can see that he's got the poster divided into multiple sections with headings that are easy to read. He has attractive graphics and colors that make the poster inviting. And for this particular purpose, which is designing a research project that he'll do in the future, he's focused the content so it makes sense. The introduction, research questions and research objectives, and then the methods and the methodology. So what are the common sections of a poster? Here they are. You don't need all of these in your poster. You're going to select the sections that make the most sense for your project. So you want to think about the different things that you're doing in your particular project and which ones are going to make sense for the short and long term of your work. Think about what might be better on your handout. I've highlighted some things in red here, like contact information, an abstract, analytical frameworks, references, further reading and related resources. These are all things that you might imagine someone taking away with them. What's better in the pitch? Well, the background and introduction is going to help people understand where you're coming from. Conclusions are why a lot of people come to poster sessions in the first place. And next steps show how you're going to integrate this into the rest of your work. So note, all of these three things are different. They all work together. You might want to review what I've shared already in this slide deck to understand how you might make your poster mix up these different things. So let's talk about the poster itself. Usually it's landscape, but it can be portrait orientation. So it's the same type of aspect ratio you're looking at now. It's wider than it is high. People often use Purdue branding with a header across the whole poster that has their name and maybe their department name. They chop the poster up into sections with clear dividers or headers. They use lots of images like graphs and photos. And then, as I'm doing in this slide deck, they use bullet points and highlighting or emphasis to make the poster easy to skim. You might even include a QR code so people can find a website or a Google Doc with more information. Here's another way not to make posters. Print out your slide deck and paste it on the wall. Again, this is something that I saw at a conference. This isn't made up. This actually happened. This is not the way to reimagine your presentation as a poster. Here's a better way to do it. This is a poster that my research team and I made for a conference in 2017. The same one where I took those two pictures I've already shared. Now we had the luxury of a large space to use. We had a poster that was 3.5 feet high and almost 6 feet wide. So we were able to put a lot more text on the poster than you might in a usual poster session. The three cells of this poster focus on our project as a whole, talk about the way that we're developing the project with the long term in mind, and then on the right, we present research based upon the infrastructure that we've already built. So one thing that's neat about this poster is you can drop the one on the right and just present the two on the left with the black banners and have a standalone poster that can fit into a smaller space. So I encourage you to find examples of posters that are similar to your work. This is actually easy. Just search for research poster in Google and add either template, example, or site:/purdue.edu. The last of these will focus on Purdue's website, and you'll be able to see lots of examples of undergraduate research posters that have been used in the past by students like you. All right, now let's talk about making the actual poster. You're going to start with your project documents. Gather all of your documents, print them out if you're the kind of person that likes to work on paper, and think about the story you have to tell. How far has your project come since the beginning of the semester? Where are you headed? Highlight, again, literally if you're working on paper, and think about what you're going to share based on the sections from previous slides. What did you learn by doing your research project that other people will be interested in? Narrow, 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 narrow. This is the key to making a poster. You can't share everything. You want to think about your best material, ideally presented with some visuals. What can you get across in a few hundred words on your poster and a few hundred words of speaking? One good way to do it is to make a mock-up. This is another example from my graduate research methods class where a student printed out sections of the work that she had done and then sketched out other sections where she mocked up. If you look close, you can hear her saying blah, 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 and just tried to prototype using paper what her poster would look like. Here's a part of the text that Jane Smith put into that poster. The next step here is to get out your red pen and cut. What Jane copy and pasted from her work was 225 words long, which is about 90 seconds if you read it out loud. The first step is just cutting. Take out the things which are not necessary or which are part of the trappings of writing things out in prose. Highlight the things that can go into lists or tables or other forms that are much easier to share on a poster for people to skim. And then cut it down. And you can see I've turned those 225 words into 82 words, and I've used lists to make the presentation easier to read much more quickly. Now, you're not going to do this with one piece of software. You're going to have to move across multiple programs to get this work done. You'll use PowerPoint or something like it to make the poster. You'll use Microsoft Word or Pages or another word processor to write the pitches. You'll use Google Sheets or Excel to put your data into a spreadsheet and create the charts. And you'll use Google Chrome to do the research that you need to tie it all together. So like a lot of different types, like you've been doing this semester with your projects, it's not just one document, it's multiple documents, and those multiple documents are made by multiple programs. But for the poster itself, it's probably going to be either PowerPoint or Google Slides. Now, PowerPoint is supported by ITAP, so if you go to Hicks or the Walk, you can get somebody to actually help you with it. Google Slides, obviously, you can do from anywhere, and there are templates online, like the one I'm using here in this PowerPoint deck, to make this presentation a little bit more interesting. InDesign and Canva are also options, but I'm not sure I would try either of these because InDesign is very hard to use, and Canva we've had students have trouble printing from Canva this semester. So 5 best practices for designing your poster. First and foremost, keep it short. Let go of the words. Cut, cut, cut. Second, use visuals to share your findings and tell your story. And third, visuals to make your poster look good. Decoration is just fine. Use a light background so it's easy to read and select contrasting colors. Here's another example of a poster that I've done where you can see all of this at work. We picked a blue for the banners, which is a nice contrasting color, but black can go on top of the blue and it's still easy to read. We've got a couple visuals, both of which have some color to create visual interest. Again, this is a nice big poster. It was 3 feet wide and 4 feet high, so we're able to keep our text big enough that people can read. But even though we did that, we used lots of lists and we highlighted selectively so our poster is very, very easy to skim and use quickly. There's a QR code in the lower right and a very easy to type web address so people can find out more about the study that we were starting at the time we made this poster in 2019. And this is the work that I've talked to you guys about in a lot of our classes that's developed into a special issue for a journal. So as you build your poster, work recursively. Don't just work on the poster and then do the pitch and then do the handout. Sketch them all out at once and go back and forth and think about what each of these genres does best and how they can both all represent your project on the short and the long term. Save everything. If you use Excel to make a chart, save that file. If you create some photos and crop them, save the originals. You want to make sure that if you do this again in a year or two, you can remix all the different parts to make your poster for your project if it's been updated. Use the arrange and align tools in PowerPoint or Google Slides to make sure everything in your poster lines up neatly and gives it a professional appearance. And finally, as I've said in class, print it out. You can't trust the colors that are on screen, especially dark colors and contrast. A color printout will only cost you a few cents of the money you get every semester to print if you go to Hicks or the Walk. All right, now let's get to the pitches, getting ready for the conversation that you would have if we were actually doing a poster session. You want to develop pitches at 2 levels. First, across your whole project, you're going to talk about what you've been doing and where you're going. So you want a 75-word pitch, that's about 30 seconds, that describes your whole project. Please, please, please don't write a 5-minute spiel that you expect somebody to stand there and listen to as you talk about every single part of your poster. Do it quickly, and then imagine key elements that you can talk about so people can ask questions and engage the parts that they're interested in, not the parts that you think are the most important. Work with specific parts of your poster. Imagine people asking questions, think about answers that you can provide, and ensure that you touch on your visuals. These are going to attract attention, and people are going to ask you about them. So here's that pitch that you might develop for your whole project. This is a 67-word pitch, so it can be read in less than 30 seconds, and it goes with that 3-part poster that I showed you earlier. I won't read the whole thing to you, but you can imagine that as I read it, I might be pointing to different parts of the poster, highlighting visuals, and creating the type of interaction that we want to get out of a poster session. Again, the whole purpose of this is to create conversation and get people interested in your work and get them talking about it. So again, imagine talking points that correspond to each section of your poster, especially the visuals. Make up questions, make up a fake FAQ, and prepare answers, not that you're going to read during your poster, but ones that you can just rely on because you've already practiced them. Here's one way you might imagine doing that. I've got a cutout, a sort of crop of my poster here, and I'm pointing to specific sections where I've imagined questions people might ask about specific things and then answers I can give. So you might look at the slide deck, zoom in, and then do this yourself with a printout, maybe a small size printout that you can make in color, or just print your poster in sections and do it that way. The key here, if you're actually presenting a poster, is practice. You want to read these pitches out loud so that you don't have to rely on them when you're having a conversation, and so that any glitches when you have words that don't sound good together or things that are just hard to get off your tongue, you can rewrite those over time. Now again, you're not going to actually present your poster in class this semester. We do have a couple students doing honors projects that will give us presentations, but most of us won't be doing this. I want you to pretend that you will though, because this is a great experience for you and you'll get feedback from me. And it'll help you do a poster in the future if you find yourself doing it for an honors project or undergraduate research, or maybe even for your work. I want to thank the folks at Slides Carnival for the template that I used today to make this a little bit more exciting than some of the other slide decks I've shared this semester. And I want to thank you guys for listening to this video. If you have questions, please share them in Brightspace. I've made a forum where you're welcome to ask questions about building a poster or anything else that's on your mind at this point in the semester.